Hi everyone, welcome to week 3. This week's lecture is about formulating problems, developing questions, and identifying independent and dependent variables. Okay, here we go. We'll talk about problems first, and then questions and hypotheses, and then independent and dependent variables after that, and conclude just by talking quickly about deductive and inductive research. So social work, for the most part, deals with social problems. We also deal with populations of people, and it's actually very common for social work researchers to sort of merge the two and deal with a population of people who are experiencing a social problem. Just about anything you could think of could be a social problem. For example, poverty would be a very broad social problem, but a problem in which social workers have been involved for a very long time. Certainly political issues are often social problems, so problems related to immigration, refugee status, problems related to the distribution of resources, problems related to housing have sort of very traditional social work research topics. Health problems are as well, including mental health problems, substance abuse, substance misuse, child abuse, child neglect, that kind of thing. If you want to think about populations, we often deal with what's known as vulnerable populations. So that might be, for example, people who are very old, people who are very young, people who are victims of crimes or survivors of crimes, people who are survivors of abuse, that kind of thing. And then, of course, like I said, you can sort of combine the two, and you might think about a population with a particular problem. So, for example, you might think about survivors of trauma and substance abuse problems, something like that. That happens to be what some of my research deals with. At any rate, this slide is kind of about the scientific method in quantitative research, and the top bullet point there, problem issue is identified, research question is formed. That's sort of what we're dealing with today. So in future weeks, we're gonna sort of work through the rest of the rest of this list. So it's very common for social workers to pick a research problem, frankly, based on what their interests are. What is it that excites them? Why is it that they got? Why is it that they started a career in social work? It's absolutely a sort of a valid place to pick a topic, or a valid reason to pick a topic, based on your work with clients or based on the work that you hope to do. It's very common, in fact, for researchers to sort of encounter a social problem in practice, and then sort of that forms the basis of what their research interests are. As always, I'll just pause here for a second. If you have trouble identifying a research topic, get in touch with me. We can talk about what your interests are, and I can help you narrow something down. So social work research questions often are aimed at solving problems or clarifying the nature of a problem so that a solution can be developed. We often are interested in questions that can be answered with verifiable sort of empirical data. And we're actually going to talk about what makes a good research question here in the next couple of slides. Keep in mind that when you do write a research question, the first draft is often not very good. I find this is very true in my own work all the time. It takes a couple of drafts. You have to sort of refine a question a little bit, and figure out what it is, to get to the point where you're actually figuring out what it is you need to do. So don't be intimidated or don't be frustrated if you can't develop a research question in your first pass. So for to develop your research area, think about what it is that got you into the program, or what it is that was sort of your motivation to come into the program. Are you interested in working with a particular group of people? Are you interested in working with a particular agency in a particular part of the country, maybe even internationally? Are you interested in working on a particular problem? All of those would sort of be good places to start thinking about what interests you as you think about a topic. By the way, as far as I'm concerned, just about anything goes. So I would not limit topics at all. Again, if you have questions, you're welcome to get in touch with me. So there's kind of three general questions that researchers use to evaluate what makes a research question good. Those generally are feasibility, social importance, and scientific relevance. Feasibility simply means is the question something you can answer. That typically, by the way, means that research questions are very narrow, and that's sort of the way research moves ahead. It moves ahead in very, very, very small steps, not big leaps at all. So typically, feasible questions are ones that can be answered via access to a population and with methods that are sort of well known. And then social importance and scientific relevance are actually sort of two sides of or different sides of the same coin. Social importance simply means that the question is going to impact society in some positive way, or the answer to the question would impact society in some positive way. And scientific relevance simply means that it would move the field forward, that it would be a benefit to science. Oops, went too far. So typically, when you start developing a social work research question, think about something that you think is possible. Think about some of the things we talked about last week, the different purposes of research: descriptive purposes, exploratory, explanatory, and evaluative. You might start by just thinking about a descriptive question. What's the extent of a particular social problem in my area? Or what's the burden of a particular social problem for a population of people in my state, or something like that. Again, don't be frustrated if you can't do this in the first pass. This takes a little bit of work to be able to actually develop something that really is researchable. I tend to find that the best research questions do not have yes or no answers. Although some do. This isn't sort of a universal rule. I tend to find that good research questions are things that, like I said, are not answered with yes or no questions. So you can use that to start as well. So a research question typically it's clear, it's focused, it's concise, it's pretty short, and that's so that it's sort of communicable to others. So I put two examples up here. So here's the first example. Do racial and gender disparities in medication non-adherence exist under Medicare Part D? Now, I just said a second ago that I typically think that good research questions don't have yes or no answers, and this one potentially could. So, we might answer this question by saying yes, there are racial and gender disparities, or no, they're not.